All right, listener name. So you send over this article, and it's about digital privacy, especially with Windows 11, huh? It's well, it really makes you think about like our relationship with tech these days.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a pretty deep dive. And what I find really interesting is how the author connects these privacy worries to their own experiences, with Apple, of all things. They talk about how years ago they kind of saw this trend with Apple moving towards like a closed system.
Oh, you mean like when they stopped putting CD drives in Macs, which basically forced everyone to get software from, well, their store.
Exactly. They called that one way back. And then, get this, they also predicted that whole thing with Apple switching to making their own chips, which, if you think about it, really gave Apple a lot more control over how the Mac operating system works.
Wow, that's kind of prescient.
Yeah.
But it's not like this author hates Apple or anything, right? They even said they like using their products.
Right, right. It's not about any specific company, really. See, the author comes at this from like an archivist's point of view. They're all about preserving things offline just in case something happens. And that kind of resonates with a lot of people, especially now with all the talk about data and, big tech.
Totally. And that whole just in case thing seems to be at the heart of their concerns with Windows 11, too. It's like they see a similar pattern, like this move towards a more controlled experience and less about, I don't know, freedom.
Exactly. The article even mentions how much the author used to love Microsoft. Like, they saw Windows as this symbol of freedom. You could customize everything.
Yeah, like remember when you could tweak every little setting?
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting about the whole Windows 11 thing. They basically say there are two huge red flags when it comes to operating systems. First, you've got systems that need constant internet access, like just to function at all.
Yeah.
And second, you've got, hardware level surveillance.
And they're saying Windows 11 is doing both.
That's their argument. They even point to this thing called a TPM. It stands for Trusted Platform Module. Basically, it's a microchip that's built into most computers these days.
TPM. I think I've heard of that, but to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what it does.
So, in a nutshell, it's supposed to be like a digital vault for your data, right? But the author says that in Windows 11, it goes way further. Like they're saying Microsoft is using the TPM to tie your identity, your Microsoft account, and your actual hardware all together. It's like inescapable.
So wait, hold on. It's more than just like being pushed to the Microsoft store. It's about how much your information is baked into the operating system itself.
Yeah, that's the big issue here. And, Microsoft says all these changes are about security, right?
Yeah.
Stopping piracy, that kind of thing. But this author, they're not buying it.
Well, yeah, Microsoft doesn't really make money selling Windows anymore, do they?
No. I mean, most people get it when they buy a new computer or it just like upgrades automatically. So the author is saying that Microsoft's real goal is collecting your data. That's what these new versions of Windows are all about.
And that reminds me, they talk about that whole thing with the Xbox One, right, when it first came out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They bring up that whole controversy. Microsoft wanted the Xbox One to be online all the time, remember that? And they were going to stop people from selling used games.
Oh, man, gamers were furious.
For good reason. It's interesting, though, because the author sees some parallels. Like, what's happening with Windows 11 is kind of similar. Microsoft had to back down with the Xbox, right? The backlash was too much. But the author thinks they might be doing the same thing, just more quietly this time.
So instead of like being locked into a gaming console, it's our whole computer. That's kind of a scary thought. But isn't this kind of like how tech is already, we give up so much data just using our phones or, browsing the web?
Right, and that's what makes it so tricky. It's this whole trend. Like, where does it end? The author gets that, but they also talk about how fast things can change. They even bring up the COVID lockdowns.
Whoa.
Like, governments were able to restrict movement basically overnight, and their point is corporations like Microsoft, they could be setting the stage for the same thing to happen online.
So like digital lockdowns instead of real world ones.
Exactly, and that's what's scary, right? It could happen so slowly we don't even realize it until it's too late. And the author is worried because it's getting harder and harder to opt out of this whole system. Always connected, always tracked. It's like they're waving a big warning flag, They even say they're worried about Linux.
Linux. But that's like the go-to for privacy.
I know, right? Sounds like they're worried about some things that might be happening within the Linux world, but they don't really get into specifics in this article.
Man, this is a deep rabbit hole. But if even Linux isn't safe, then what is? Like, what can people who actually care about privacy do?
That is the million-dollar question. And honestly, the author doesn't really offer any simple answers. I think their goal is more about awareness,
Mm.
getting people to really think about their relationship with technology.
It's like we're always choosing between like being in control and just, having things be easy.
Yeah.
But we don't always know what we're giving up, do we?
You hit the nail on the head there.
Mm.
And it gets harder to back out, The more we depend on these systems, the more we're locked in. It's easy to get, comfortable and just stop paying attention.
Yeah, for sure. So, listener name, after going through all this, what are you thinking? Have you ever, worried about this stuff before? I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, and the author really wants people to be proactive, don't just click agree on everything. Do your research, figure out what you're really signing up for. It's about making choices, not just going with the flow.
It's like that saying, right?
Yeah.
If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Right.
But now, even when you DO-pay, you still might be part of the deal.
Crazy. It really is. It comes down to being aware, right? Knowing how these systems work, what data they're collecting. That's how you take control instead of letting it control you.
It really makes you think. This whole conversation has been eye-opening.
You know what? I might actually dig out my old CD collection, just in case.
Hey, nothing wrong with a little backup plan.
Yeah.
But seriously, being able to think critically about tech, that's so important these days.
Totally agree. The future isn't just about the tech itself. It's about the choices we make about how we use it and, well, how much we let it shape our lives.